UFC Fight Night, Dern versus Ribas. Come on, boys, it's fight week. Let's get right into it. I'm going to be breaking down the entire card from start to finish, early prelim to main card and main event. So let's get right the fuck into it. Starting off the night, I know we're back with a fight night. It's not the best fight night, but we're going to be hyped for it because the UFC is back, baby. Starting off the night, we got Nurullo Aliev versus Joe Solecki. Pretty good matchup. Before, it was Yanal Ashmouz got switched out for Joe Solecki. He's coming in short notice fighting Nurullo Aliev, who hasn't fought in about 2 years. So this is going to be kind of interesting to see. I don't know how this one's going to play out. I do think Nurullo Aliev is the better fighter. I think he's got great offensive wrestling, offensive grappling. That is his forte. You know, he loves to keep guys on the ground, pressure them, and get some ground and pound, and that's exactly what I think he's going to do in this matchup. Joe Solecki, you know, he's got some balls for taking this one on short notice. It's going to be interesting to see. He's on a 2-fight losing streak at the moment, and you know, he's a great submission artist. He's got amazing BJJ, but this is going to be a tough task because Aliev is a very, very good wrestler. He is going to be shooting takedowns right off the bat. I don't see Joe Solecki staying on his feet for a while. He does, you know, accept bad positions. He does get himself on the ground, and he does just stay down there. So I do think Aliev will be pressuring him and keeping him down on the ground where he can't get up and he can't really do anything for 3 rounds straight. But if Joe Solecki is able to pull off a submission, it would be in a guillotine, because Aliev does have a tendency to dive in with his head very open. He's gotten caught in some guillotines quite often. He's gotten caught a few times. In his last fight a couple of years ago, he got caught at least twice with some guillotines. They were close, but you know, nothing really made him struggle. But at the same time, if Joe Solecki can lock up a guillotine, that would be his best chance, his best opportunity to get the win. But I do see Aliev, you know, squeezing out a solid 29-28 decision over 3 rounds, just holding him on the ground, pressuring him, and ground and pound. I don't see this one being too entertaining of a fight, but you know, starting off the night, we're gonna see how Aliev looks after 2 years off in the layoff. So we'll see. Moving on, though, we got Victoria Dudakova versus Fatima Klein. The odds on this, I don't really get it. Fatima Klein is a huge 6-1 favorite, and she lost her last fight. She looked pretty good, very scrappy. She's a very, very good pressure fighter. She does not lay off the gas. She is non-stop, always pushing forward. You know, she mixes it up very, very well, and you know, she has good striking. She has good offensive grappling, but you know, she tends to get on bottom position. She fought Jasmine Jasudavicius last time out, and she ended up on bottom position, got kind of dominated. I don't see that happening from Victoria Dudakova, though. Victoria Dudakova doesn't have amazing wrestling. She only has a good clinch game, and she drags down to the mat. She doesn't ever go for double legs or single legs. She only locks her hands and brings them down to the mat. So, you know, and she also doesn't have an amazing ground and pound game. So Fatima Klein won't have to worry about that part of her game, but it'll be interesting to see if she can strike with Victoria Dudakova. But Fatima Klein does not stop pushing the pace. This one, to me, the odds should not be this huge. I think Victoria Dudakova is very, very underrated in this fight. So I am going to be going with Fatima Klein, because I do think Fatima Klein is the better pressure fighter, and I do think Victoria Dudakova will get pushed up against the fence. But I wouldn't doubt Victoria Dudakova. I wouldn't be putting my money anywhere near this fight, that's for sure. Even at 6-1 odds, don't be betting on Fatima Klein. But it will be interesting to see how it plays out. I do think Klein will get the decision, though. We'll move on to the next fight. Magomed Gadzhiyassilov versus Bruno Lopez. This is a pretty good matchup. It's funny because Magomed has beat Brenson Ribeiro, and Bruno Lopez got knocked out by Brenson Ribeiro. So this one's kind of interesting, and that's Bruno Lopez's only losses to Brenson Ribeiro by knockout. So, you know, both these guys, they're very good. Magomed, very, very well-rounded. Just had a good win against Brenson Ribeiro, excuse me. You know, he's very good at pressuring. He's good at mixing it up. And for a light heavyweight, he's very good at takedowns and controlling on the ground. So I do think he will be able to control Bruno Lopez. But Bruno Lopez has a lot of power behind his hands, and he's got a lot of flashy knockouts, a lot of very powerful knockouts, and Magomed doesn't really have that power, but he is a good fighter. He keeps the range, he keeps the distance, and he knows when to pick his shots right and when to go to the ground, which is, I just think he's going to have the better IQ in this fight and be able to play it out better. Bruno Lopez kind of goes in swinging. He swings big bombs. He's got power, but I don't think he's going to be able to land a solid hit on Magomed and really knock him out. So I'm going to be going with Magomed. I think he's going to pull off the decision, potentially even a submission if he can get there, but I think he will get a decision. 29-28, easy stuff for Magomed. He's going to stay undefeated. We're going to move on to Ernesta Karakete versus Nicole Cagliari. This is an interesting one as well. A lot of people believe that Ernesta was robbed in her last fight against, I think it was Diona Barbosa, I'm pretty sure. It was in Brazil at UFC 301. So, of course, you know, the Brazilians were a bit favored in that matchup, but it was a very close fight. That was a very, very close fight. Some would be scoring it towards Ernesta. A lot of people scored it towards Ernesta, even though it was a unanimous decision. But, I mean, it was very close. So, we're not going to look back on that one. But she did do well in that fight. And then you got Nicole Cagliari on the other side. Very good submission artist. She's finished all of her fights. And she's a woman MMA fighter. That's very impressive. We're going to see if she can carry that on into this fight. But I think this one will be very close because Ernesta is a tall, lengthy striker, and Nicole is a small, stocky grappler and submission artist. So I think this one, if it does go to the ground, will be going towards Nicole. But if it stays on the feet, Ernesta will have the advantage. She does have some good takedown defense, and I think she will be able to keep it on the feet and pick Nicole apart. I don't think Nicole will be able to get close and be able to deal the damage that she wants to. I think Ernesta, she's very tall. I think she's 5'8", 5'9". She's very tall for the division. Long arms, long legs. She's got very nice kicks, and I think she's just going to be able to pick those shots and keep Nicole at range. So I'm going to be going with Ernesta Karakete by decision. But we'll be moving on to the final fight of the prelims, of the early prelims. Preston Parsons versus Jacoby Smith. It wasn't Jacoby Smith before. He just got switched, and I'm really happy that he got switched into this fight because Jacoby Smith just fought this year on Dana White Contender Series, got a beautiful knockout, ground and pound finish, and you know he's definitely a prospect. He's definitely an American prospect. He's 9-0 at the moment, and people are hyping him up like crazy. Daniel Cormier, for example, was like, this guy might be the next dude at 170. You know, he thought he was a great prospect. And I'm really excited to see how Jacoby Smith fits in the UFC against a guy like Preston Parsons, who is an offensive wrestler, offensive grappler, and is going to be going for those takedowns. Jacoby Smith, very well-rounded guy. You know, he's got power in his hands, and he's good on the ground as well. Had a dominant ground and pound performance on the Dana White Contender Series. Preston Parsons coming off of a decision loss to Oban Elliott. Elliott was able to stuff all of his takedowns and keep it on the feet where he wanted to, and pick the perfect shots to defeat Preston Parsons. I think that'll be the exact same thing here with Jacoby Smith. I think Jacoby Smith is going to piece up Preston Parsons even on short notice. Jacoby Smith is a very, very athletic guy, super built for the division, and he just knows his way around the mat. I just don't think Preston Parsons will be able to get the takedowns that he needs to win this fight, because Preston Parsons, if he can't get the takedowns, he has nothing against Jacoby Smith. Jacoby Smith's striking is so much better than Preston Parsons. So we'll see how this one plays out. But I got Jacoby Smith by finish. I think he's going to get the knockout over Preston Parsons in the second or third round. But we'll move on to the prelims, the main prelims. We got Thiago Moises versus Trey Ogden. Super fun fight. This is going to be interesting to see how this one goes. Trey Ogden and Moises are kind of middle range, lightweight guys. So, you know, whichever one wins this fight will be potentially looking for a ranked opponent or closer to the rankings, which is great for them. You know, Thiago Moises, I believe he is coming off of a win, and Trey Ogden as well. He's coming off of an upset win. Thiago Moises, very scrappy guy. He's very, very well rounded, and Trey Ogden, same thing. But Trey Ogden, you know, he prefers to keep it on the feet, and he tries to mix in everything that he does well. And I think he's gonna be able to take over in this fight against Thiago Moises. But later on in the fight, Thiago Moises will get his hands going. He kind of carries it, pushes the pace later on, and I think he's going to be able to do that in this fight and get the decision. I think it'll be a split decision for Thiago Moises. Very close fight, I see this one being. But we'll move on to the next. Marco Tulio versus Ihor Potieria. Man, they keep feeding Ihor to like dogs, man. They keep feeding him to dogs. Marco Tulio is a dog coming out of Charles Oliveira's camp, coming out of Shoot the Box, and he is a prospect, man. He's a really good prospect coming out of Brazil. I think Marco Tulio is going to be great at 185 in middleweight, man. He looks composed, he looks calculated, his striking's great, his wrestling is great, but, you know, he's got power and he's not afraid to use it. I don't think Ihor Potieria is going to survive this fight. I do think that the UFC is trying to feed him to the wolves and get him out of the UFC. It sucks what happened in his last one against Cesar Almeida. I do think Almeida cheated a little bit with the eye pokes. Actually cheated a lot. What am I saying? With the eye pokes. The reffing was horrible in that fight. But we're going to see how this one goes. I do think Marco Tulio does get the knockout though, but we'll see. We'll see. Maybe Ihor can pull off the upset. I got Marco Tulio by knockout in the first. I think that's just how it goes. Moving on though, we got a flyweight fight. Jose Johnson versus Felipe Bunez. This one's kind of interesting. Both these guys kind of have close records, and I think this is going to be close. I think this will be a close fight. I think it'll actually be a very fun fight because both guys are decently tall. Jose Johnson is a 6 foot flyweight. I don't understand. I genuinely don't understand how it's even possible, but he's a 6 foot flyweight. Very, very skinny for the division, and you know, he's lengthy. He's very lengthy, and he's fighting another guy who is quite lengthy in Felipe Bunez. You know, he just got knocked out by Joshua Van. Actually, I think it was like a year ago. Had a decent layoff, got knocked out by Joshua Van, but he put up a fight. I think Felipe Bunez is a very, very well mixed martial artist on the feet and on the ground. I don't know how Jose Johnson is going to strike with him. I think Bunez will have the striking advantage in this one, and I think he will pull off the decision. But if Jose can get it to the ground, he definitely has a chance of finding a submission on Felipe Bunez. But I will be going with Bunez by decision. We'll be moving on, though, to Punali Soriano versus Uros Medic. Let's go. Medic is back. I'm hyped to see this one. I think Uros Medic is going to get a nice knockout on Punali Soriano. You know, he struggled when he was down at 155. When he fought the guys like Jalen Turner, he struggled. He was small at that division. Moves up to 170. He's looking a lot better. I think Uros Medic will have the power and the precision to put away Punali Soriano. I also have never liked Punali. I'm gonna be honest. I've never really liked his fight style, and I think he's kind of just wings it every single fight. It seems like he's winging it. Uros Medic very calculated on the feet, very good. His only struggle is on the ground with submissions, and Punali does not have any submissions since like 2018. So I do not see this one going to the ground. I think this one will stay on the feet. I think Uros Medic will pick him apart with his calculated striking. So I'm going to be going Uros Medic by KO in the first or second round for sure. We're going to move on. We got Austin Bashi versus Christian Rodriguez. This is a fun matchup, man. I'm excited to see how Austin Bashi mashes up in the UFC, because this guy's hyped up as well. He's a hyped up American, undefeated, 13-0. Had a nice submission on Dana White's Contender Series. And he's here in the UFC fighting a guy in Christian Rodriguez who has taken 3 zeros back to back. He took Raul Rosas Jr.'s O, he took Cameron Saman's O, and he took Isaac Bulgarian's O. I mean, you know, nasty stuff. I think Christian Rodriguez very underrated at 145. You know, he's taken a lot of these guys' zeros. A lot of their undefeated records have gone to Christian Rodriguez, and I wouldn't be surprised if he pulled it off here. But I will be going with Austin Bashi. I think this guy is very well-rounded, especially on the ground. He's a very good wrestler. A lot of American guys are really good at wrestling, and Austin Bashi is one of them. I think he's going to out-wrestle and out-grapple Christian Rodriguez for 3 rounds straight and get a decision. We will move on to Chris Curtis versus Roman Kopylov. This is a fight I've talked about previously, and I think Chris Curtis versus Roman Kopylov is going to be a close one, but I do believe Roman Kopylov will be taking this fight. Chris Curtis, man, you know, his last nice win in the UFC was against Joaquin Buckley, and that was 2 years ago when Buckley was at 185. Didn't look as good. Since then, Chris Curtis hasn't really had anything amazing, barely beat Marc-Andre Barrios. So I just think Roman Kopylov is going to outkick him. Roman Kopylov might have some of the most beautiful kicks in middleweight, if not the most beautiful kicks in middleweight. I think he will destroy Chris Curtis in this matchup. I do hope Chris Curtis wins, though, because of the controversies within Chris Curtis's camp. He came out and he said that Roman Kopylov sent in spies. We can't verify if that's true, but we have to believe that Chris Curtis is telling the truth, and that, you know, Roman Kopylov was trying to cheat, which is messed up. It's a dirty scumbag move. Nothing we can really do about it. Roman Kopylov, amazing striker. I think he will outstrike and outpiece Chris Curtis throughout the 3 rounds. I think it will be a close fight in the beginning, but I think Roman Kopylov will push the pace in the later rounds, and he'll find that finish. I think he'll find a KO, maybe potentially a KO by kick, nice body shot or something to finish off Chris Curtis. We'll move on, though, to Abdul Razak Al Hassan versus Cesar Almeida. Cesar Almeida, man, his only loss is to Roman Kopylov, funny enough, by split decision not that long ago. But I do think Cesar Almeida is a very, very good fighter. I mean, I think he's going to destroy Abdul Razak. Abdul Razak is getting up there in age. I believe he's 38, 39. He doesn't have much left in him. He had a no contest against Brundage not that long ago, but Cesar Almeida is a much better striker than Abdul Razak, and Abdul Razak does not bring it to the ground. He will not mix in the wrestling too heavily against Cesar Almeida. Almeida is going to keep the pace. He's going to be able to piece him up on the feet, I do believe. He had a tough competition with Kopylov, and both those guys are high-level strikers. In back-to-back fights here, it's interesting to see. I think both of them will pull off the win. I think Cesar Almeida could find a nice knockout on Abdul Razak Al Hassan, probably in the later rounds though. So I'm going to be going Cesar Almeida by knockout. Moving on to the co-main, which is, I'm going to be honest, it's a weak co-main. We got Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Carlston Harris. Unk versus Unk, man. Both these guys, I mean, Santiago's coming to the end of his career. Carlston Harris is kind of midway in his career, but he's still getting up there in age. And I do think Santiago Ponzinibbio could take this fight. I do think he could take this fight. I think his striking is going to be much better than Carlston Harris. I like Carlston Harris, but I don't think he can strike with the better guys. And I think Santiago Ponzinibbio still has high-level striking. And, he still has hands. I think he's going to be throwing hands. I think he's going to be connecting on Carlston Harris. Carlston Harris is a very good wrestler, very good grappler. When he brings it to the ground, he finishes it. He's a very good submission artist, but he struggles on the feet. We've seen this, against Shavkat. He got head kicked. That was a kind of crazy head kick. So initially, it was like, okay, well, it's Shavkat, right? But he just got knocked out by Chaos Williams. Nasty knockout. We'll see if he recovered from it, but I just think that Carlston Harris doesn't have the striking capabilities that we thought he did. He did look like a decent prospect at 170. He still is good. He could win this fight, but I do think Santiago Ponzinibbio will take this just by damage-based fighting. If it stays on the feet, I think he will outstrike him for the 3 rounds, and he will get the decision. So I will be taking Santiago Ponzinibbio by decision, 29-28. And yeah, we're going to move on to the main event. We got Mackenzie Dern versus Amanda Ribas. I'm not going to hate on the main event, but it is a weak main event to come back to in 2025. Weak fight night main event to come back to in 2025. I don't have too much to say about this fight. They fought before. Mackenzie Dern and Ribas fought before. Ribas took that fight by decision. I don't see the outcome being any different this time out. I do think Amanda Ribas is the better fighter. I think she's the better striker. I think she will take this fight by decision as well. Back-to-back decisions for, her. I think she's going to be taking this one just like the last decision. It will be the same outcome. I don't see Mackenzie Dern doing anything to shock anybody. Of course, this is a 5-rounder, so we have to take it with a grain of salt, but it is a women's 5-rounder, so I still think this one might go the distance. I think this will go the distance to Amanda Ribas, so I'm going to be going Amanda Ribas by decision, 49-48, regular stuff. It's expected. That's really the fight night, man. Like, it's a small fight night, as in there's not many big names on it, but there is a lot of opportunity for some performance bonuses of the night for some of the smaller guys, which I would love to see. So we'll see if we can get some nice finishes on this fight night. But that's the end of the video, boys. If you guys did enjoy, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, drop your comments down below which fight you guys are most entertained to see, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you.